I'm the executive director of Humane Long Island, an anthrozoologist, and the former senior manager of PETA's Animals and Entertainment campaign. Abducted from her family when she was only 4 years young, Tokate, as she was known by her relatives in the Lumi Nation, and Lolita, as she was known by her captors, was torn out of the ocean in 1970 during the largest capture of free-roaming orcas in history. Hunters used speedboats, airplanes, and explosives to corral the entire southern resident orca community into a narrow cove. 4 drowned, and 7 youngsters were abducted from their families and sold to aquariums around the world. For the next more than 50 years, Lolita saw nothing but concrete and cheering children who would have cried if they knew her reality. For the first decade, she shared her tank with an orca named Hugo. However, Hugo protested so robustly against his captors that he killed himself, ramming the walls of their tank 43 years ago. Toki was without same-species companionship ever since. Activists like you and I urged the Miami Seaquarium to end Toki's hellish life in a concrete cell and release her to a seaside sanctuary where she could dive deeply, feel the ocean's currents, and even be reunited with the orca believed to be her mother. And for the last few months, this plan was almost realized. However, sanctuary came too late, and on August 18, 2023, Toki died after more than half a century in the smallest orca tank in the world. Normally, this is the time one would call for a moment of silence. However, as activists, we should never be silent. Toki's suffering is over. However, the suffering of Corky, an orca who has been imprisoned for even longer at SeaWorld, continues. So does the suffering of sloths, kangaroos, and other wild animals imprisoned only an hour away from here on Long Island, and at Sequest, right across the water in New Jersey. Countless farmed animals are being slaughtered right now at New York City's more than 80 live slaughter markets, and there are more than 200 horses enslaved in the New York City horse-drawn carriage industry. With the closure of Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus after 146 years, the Iditarod dog sled race slashing its purse by $500,000, and SeaWorld announcing the end of its sordid orca breeding program and its circus-style dolphin shows, we know change is possible. We defeated Sequest on Long Island. We defeated them in Fort Lauderdale, and just last month across the water in Connecticut, we closed them down too. Every year, Rachel and I rescue a dozen or more ducks, chickens, turkeys, and more at live slaughter markets without giving them a dime. And you guys can do this too. Signing petitions and posting on social media is good, but it's not enough. Attending this march once a year is great, but again, it's not enough. And even being vegan, which saves 200 animals a year, is not enough. We need strategic actions with attendance like this consistently, every day around the world. We need you guys to be activists. We need more vegan activists, not more plant-based eaters. In memory of Toki, I am urging you to seize the momentum that came with her death, to save other animals from suffering the same fate. Join Humane Long Island, join PETA, join Rachel, not just at today's march, but throughout the year, and take power in Margaret Mead's words, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Thank you.
A year ago yesterday, the last dogs were removed from a breeding hellhole in Virginia, owned by a company called Envigo. And a lot of you might know about this already, but for those of you who don't, Envigo is a company that breeds animals to be sold and used for experimentation in laboratories. They had a massive breeding facility in Virginia that had been breeding dogs for over 50 years and selling them to be used in gruesome, cruel, violent experiments. A PETA undercover investigator spent 7 months documenting the conditions inside this facility. There were sick and dead and dying puppies crammed into tiny cages with no enrichment, no medical care. They would starve nursing mothers, which is illegal, but they would do it anyway and then lie to USDA investigators. They were breaking laws left and right, but nothing ever happened to actually impact them enough to cause them to change their behavior. And so finally, a PETA investigator went in and documented this for 7 months And the results of that investigation ultimately led to almost 4,000 beagles being removed from this facility and the facility being shut down. And yesterday, PETA posted a video of what that place looks like now. It's covered in weeds. It's overgrown. It's empty. It remains shut down. But this morning when I was getting ready to come here, I was thinking back to what it must have been like for that investigator to get up every morning and go into this hellhole and see thousands of suffering dogs. Just the day-to-day despair of seeing this, documenting it, not being able to help or do anything that would expose their real agenda. And the fact that they didn't know what was going to come of this footage that they were taking. They didn't know what would come of this investigation. They didn't know that it would turn into historical rescue of all these dogs, that it would inspire legislators, senators, congresspeople to write and demand that this facility be closed down, that it would result in a judge ordering that all these dogs be removed. They didn't know that. They just had to go back day after day and see this misery and do the best that they felt they could do to document it, to address it, to hope that they would bring about some results. And it made me think of us as a movement and the fact that it can be so hard to be an activist. We see things, we hear things, we know things that the rest of the world doesn't want to acknowledge, doesn't even want to look at. And we're constantly trying to bring that into the public eye to get people to change. People burn out, people feel alone, and it's so important to realize that we're not alone in this. And that's the importance of days like today, that we're coming together, seeing each other face to face. We know that we're not alone. We know that we're making history. And we can celebrate these victories. And we really do have so many victories. It feels slow in the moment, but no civil rights movement that has made incredible progress has ever done so overnight. And we're a relatively young movement. And so today, take this as an opportunity to stand together, to be inspired, and to know that even the setbacks that we're having these days actually show that we're winning. Ag-gag laws mean that we're winning. Meat industry campaigns to say that being vegan is over and nobody wants to eat plant-based, those are very strategic. That means we're winning. Because a few decades ago, these industries just ignored us. And now they can't. Because they see that people's hearts and minds are on our sides. And we're bringing their behavior over to our sides. And so today, celebrate everything we've accomplished and everything we will accomplish. And know that as long as we keep fighting, as long as we never let them turn us against each other or cause us to give up, we will win. So thank you all for everything you do every day and for being here today and being part of history. And know that every day that you are part of the animal rights movement, you're making history. Thank you.
I used to be a New Yorker. Thank you for welcoming me back. Once a New Yorker, New York for life, yeah? So people often accuse vegans of, quote, forcing our ideas down people's throats, when literally all they just did was read some words or look at a video in their phone. Like, I think I'm the real victim here, people. Mother, you came to our comment sections. Nobody is forcing you to do anything. All we're trying to do is to stop literal knives from being forced into literal animals' throats. All we're trying to do is to get people to recognize the fact that animals are not inanimate objects who deserve to be treated worse than serial killers, even when they're completely innocent, but that animals are sentient beings just like us, who deserve rights and protections as such. And it's not that vegans are trying to take over the world. Now, for real, all we're doing is using our freedom of speech to fight for and defend those who cannot defend themselves until their rights and freedoms are enshrined into law. So before I kick off the music, what do you think about us warming up our voices together, yeah? So when I say animal, you say rights. Animal. Animal. Hey, yo, DJ, we drop that beat. Yeah, how we doing, New York City? They say we running out of time, better make a switch. Planet Earth is on fire, it's getting dangerous. Feel like we racing to a cliff through a great abyss. Maybe these aliens can help, should we make a wish? Cause shit, your humanity is napping like we all are. Say yes, though, we could still be damned if every car was a Tesla. There's just too much damage saturated in this bubble. And now that the trees are burning, bro, trouble's about to double up. So how the fuck we gonna deal with this empirical? Look at this apocalypse and make our own miracle. Only got one last hope, start a rebirth. And it's called a rainforest, here the heart of this earth. Getting charred, getting burned, make them barbecues turn. Gas chambers to the slaughter like my grandfather learned. Say you conscious concern, spent for all that's the word. You sitting animals throat, but never use the wrong word. Hey, you up talking, I'm caught, and if we can stop the pretending, you just stayed an innocent baby, yeah, you not against oppression. Point the finger all you want, CEOs and presidents and billionaires got billions, cause you giving them your Benjamins. So please vote better, it's an evil way. That's once every 4 years, read 3 times a day. Say let's march on the White House, it is not time to wait. We'll put the money where your mouth is, start with your plate, Thank you. All right, before I bounce, let me ask you a quick question. Is it just me, or is it that every time we speak up for animals these days, it seems like the trolls will immediately creep in with the same copy and paste comments like, oh, you stupid vegans, you think you're really saving animals? Don't you know how many mice, how many birds, how many bugs get crushed under the tractor just for your damn soybeans? In fact, vegans kill more animals than meat eaters. Let's set the record straight. The animals that people eat plants. That's why it takes 20 times as much land to get a gram of protein out of a cow's corpse versus just going straight to the plant-based source. 20 times more accidental crop deaths on top of the grass puppy that you are intentionally slaughtering. And so-called grass-fed, free-range animal body parts are even worse for the earth. That's because there's so much less energy in grass than there is in the high-protein plant foods that they give to caged farm animals. High-protein foods that we could be eating, but that are instead being used to fatten up tens of billions of animals slaughtered every year, to be consumed by privileged people who will then turn around and say, veganism is too expensive for me. Even though we know for a fact that plant-based protein sources are astronomically cheaper than eating dead animals. And that connection's not a coincidence, because wasting that much land and crops drives up the cost. And that's why 8 million of the most legitimately underprivileged, extremely impoverished human beings die from starvation every single year. And that's the wasteful process involved in factory farming, and grass-fed is even worse than that. And that, my friends, is why grass-fed, free-range cancer burgers are the #1 reason that the Earth's right and left lung, aka the Congo and Amazon rainforests, are being burnt to the ground as we speak. Globally, animal consumption is the #1 cause of habitat destruction, mass extinction, and is responsible for more greenhouse gases than every car, truck, plane, train, and ship in the world combined. But just to leave you on a positive note, if the human race were to come to our senses and humans started acting humane and, like will.i.am said, founder of the vegan, just be nice, it would free up 75% of all the space currently being taken up by the human race. That's the land area equivalent to the entire United States and China and the European Union and the continent of Australia combined. Allowing that much land to regenerate into nature would obviously create enormous amounts of habitat for wild animals come back from the brink of extinction, and would lower greenhouse gas levels back down to pre-industrial levels and take us back from the brink, from the precipice of apocalypse on which we are currently standing. So thank you for being on the right side of history. Let's do this. And can we all give Will.i.am a shout out and say, V gang? Thank you.